Hi. It's good to be back. Got a special guest today, Crystal Bright, and we're going to jump right into some conversation because you have an appearance at what is called the Showcase of Original Music at the Creative Center that's coming up, right?
Yes.
Now, you've been out there busy touring and traveling and all that stuff, so what's it feel like to come off the road and then kind of scale down and do a thing like this? Is it different, interesting in its own way?
Yeah, it's definitely different, especially playing in Greensboro stripped down, because usually when we play in Greensboro, I have a full band.
I know.
You know, because it's not very often that we play in Greensboro, so, because, you know, it's the whole game of getting as many people out as you possibly can and not playing too often. But I'm not going to be playing in Greensboro too much over the next couple months after this.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know, it's the holidays and we're just trying to take a break because this year's been really busy, and I'm also doing a few other projects. But I like doing. It depends on the space and the people that are there, but I like doing more stripped down, intimate things. Especially if people are actually listening and they're connecting with each other and not drinking and, you know, just like talking really loud and.
Yeah, the bar scene can kind of put you as background music, sort of.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a nice place for people that come and they have the intention of listening to what's actually being performed.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's going to happen Friday, November 16th at the Creative Center. So Crystal and
Probably two or three
people will be doing a featured artist set there. So we hope that you will come check them out. And the Creative Center is at 900 16th Street in Greensboro, North Carolina, and you can find them online at thecreativecenter.net. Now, we got all the public addresses out of the way. Let's get to the really cool stuff. I'm curious. I think, as I said in my question, which you already read probably, maybe everybody else in the world already knows this story, but I don't quite know the story about crystal hands, where that came from.
The silver hands?
Silver hands, not the crystal hands. Yes. But I like the crystal hands.
Yeah, it's nice. It's got a ring.
Silver hands, yes.
Well, it actually comes from this old folk tale, which some of my songs do, called The Silver Hands or The Handless Maiden. And it's a kind of a long story, but briefly, it's about a girl who accidentally gets traded to the devil by her father for all the riches in the world. She's actually accidentally under the apple tree that he trades it for, and he doesn't know that she's there.
Okay.
So when the devil comes back to get her, she's too pure and innocent, and he's thrown back, and he can't. And so he says, well, don't let her bathe for a year. And so they do that, and still it doesn't work because her tears, you know, clean her. And he's thrown back again, and then he comes back a year later and says, we'll cut off her hands. And he comes back later, and so she lets her father cut off her hands, and then she feels useless because she can't do any work without any hands, and so she becomes a beggar, and she goes into the royal pear orchard, and there's a spirit that helps her eat the pears and is bending the branches down, and they notice that the pears are disappearing somehow in this huge orchard.
Okay.
And then so the king comes and sees her and falls in love with her and brings her in and makes her silver hands. And then he goes off to war for a while, and she has a child, and this devil intercepts the message and says, kill the child, and blah, blah, blah. And then the mom doesn't, and she sends the child and her off to a nunnery somewhere. And the king comes back and goes searching for her for 12 years and finally finds her. Well, he doesn't find her, but they find him almost dead, and she recognizes him and brings out her silver hands, because her real hands have grown back already.
Okay.
So it's very symbolic, and that the silver hands are like the extra hands that help me fill out the sound in my music.
Oh, okay.
And also, they just represent on multiple levels, they just represent a lot of different things.
Yeah, and you don't have to read the book now, too, because you just heard it live.
Yeah, that was the abridged version.
kind of a transcendence kind of thing, getting
Yes.
beyond something, or
Yeah,
having the power to do more.
And fulfilling and growing into your creative and your soul purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was part of that in the shadow show that you did at Fringe?
Yes.
Because I remember the scene.
Where she gets her hands
Yes, where she gets her hands chopped off.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the connection.
Yeah.
Good for me. Now, I was doing a little reading late last night while I was prepping for this, and I noticed that you've gotten some interesting descriptions from people about your music. Gypsy, ethereal, carnival-esque. But the one that really struck me was the BBC's comment about you being, let me quote them now, pleasantly bonkers?
Yes, a pleasant kind of bonkers.
And I was curious, did that kind of resonate well with you? Did you kind of
it did,
sit
actually.
with, you like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, it was just really flattering and awesome to be played on BBC.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there were like 3 or 4 plays.
Right.
But that one was Fiona Talkington.
Okay.
And yeah, she was talking about how it was all about theatre and art, and you know, my music was very esoteric in its nature, and you know, so that's true.
I guess why I was curious is because I was thinking you strike me as somebody who wants to be taken seriously, though, too. And that kind of seemed to butt up against that seriousness a little bit. Like, would people think, oh, well, maybe I won't check her out because she's just all tongue-in-cheek and doesn't really amount to anything.
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way, but because, you know, I'm not all serious. Like, some of the stuff's fun and silly, and but, you know, some of it's serious, too. And, you know, I am trying to do this professionally, so, of course, I want to be taken seriously.
Exactly.
But I thought it was...
But that's not what you think she was getting at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah,
You know,
I was just
it
curious.
was pleasant kind of bonkers.
A pleasant.
Not, you know, she didn't say anything about novelty or anything like that.
True.
So that was good.
Cool. I was reading your bio, and title after title after title, I was getting the idea that you wear a lot of hats. You do a lot of different things, and it sounds like you do a lot of those interwoven with each other, like all the time. Is music your truest or your deepest passion, or is there something else out there that really...
Yeah, music is definitely, and I've been thinking about how to try to incorporate everything that I do, you know, but it's hard. Sometimes, most of the time I do music, but I like to try to do collaborative performances with dancers and artists, and, you know, doing music videos or theater projects. But I also do holistic health counseling. And I also teach lessons. I used to do a lot more. Before I started doing music seriously, I was into, you know, sewing and making clothes, and I was into all kinds of things. And I still am into that, but I'm more focused on the music now because it takes a lot of time.
Right, yeah.
To do it at this capacity, you know, with doing the website and doing newsletters and doing booking and promoting. Yes. So it's like 4 full-time jobs.
Yes. Lots of us understand about that whole process, really.
Yeah, so I still would like to eventually do other things that I'm interested on a larger scale if, you know, when I have more money, you know, doing, when I'm more sustained from doing this.
But this is the one that's powering everything right now.
Yeah.
You look tired. You've been busy, haven't you?
Yes.
We
just got back from New Orleans trip, Atlanta and New Orleans and Mississippi.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. You've been doing a lot of touring, and I'm assuming that it's on the release of your CD. You're kind of going out and supporting that and promoting it. And you had in your blogs, there were some interesting stories about crashing with different people or busking, which not maybe a lot of musicians are familiar with that term and what that's all about. You have to come up with some unique ways to survive out there, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you busk, do you have to actually apply for a license? Do you have to go through that
Not
process?
generally, no.
No?
No. I mean, and usually when we're busking, it's on tour to make up for gas money, you know, because a lot of gigs on tours far away don't always have guarantees. So we have to make up for the money by doing that. And some places require a permit, but not a lot. New Orleans doesn't. New York doesn't. Boston and Harvard Square, they do, but both times, don't tell anybody. Both times that we have, you know, the artists, can't remember what they're called, but the people that are on the lookout for, you know, do you have a permit? People are actually walking around
Big brother.
doing that. They've seen us twice since we've been up there, and different people, and they said, do you have a permit? And we said, no, we're not from around here. And they said, well, you're awesome. Just go ahead and keep playing for today, you know? So that's worked out for us. And New Orleans and Washington Square in New York and Harvard Square in Boston have been the best times for us. And you reach so many more people that way, too.
Sure.
And then you can promote your show for that night, and, you know, more people come out to the show. And, you know, you sell more CDs. You reach kids, too, that are really into the music because they're not coming out late at night.
Do you know the places to pick? I mean, do you get feedback from people saying you really need to go set up here? Yeah.
And there's a website, too, like a busking,
really?
You know, website that talks about the best places to busk.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And obviously you're not taking the whole band out for that either, right? Or are you?
For busking?
For busking.
Well, whoever's with us plays. You know, we
Yeah.
usually go on tour with three or four people.
Okay.
So drumming, you know, I usually have a drummer and guitar for sure.
Right.
And then sometimes trumpet. So trumpet's really good for busking too.
Okay.
But, you know, Diego has this little battery-powered amp that he uses for busking, for his acoustic guitar.
Right.
So it fills out the sound more. And I have a little headset mic that hooks up to the amp too, so it fills out the sound more.
Wow.
And does pretty well.
Cool. Now, if you don't know what busking is, my understanding of it is you're out on the street and you're just playing in front of people, but I know, or I have heard in Greensboro, that they do require you to fill out a form and get a license. There's a small fee charged for that, and the license lasts a certain term of time, which you're allowed to appear in certain places within certain hours, that kind of thing. So if you're entertaining that idea, I hope you will investigate it, because, you know, we don't want you to have to run into the wrong kind of people, right?
Yeah, no. And we need more of that here, for sure.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I think there's two different permits. There's a street performer one, there's a fee that I got once, but I also heard that there's, like, one you can get that's a panhandler.
Oh, really?
That you can, you know, do, and that's free.
That's interesting.
So,
I'll keep that one in mind.
I know.
That might come in handy someday.